Welcome to the World Citizen Certificate in Civility for Global Teachers. Takeaway lesson number 5, which is called Social Justice. This is for the takeaway lessons. There are 5 plus a bonus provided in the online course. And in this tutorial, we just want to provide for you a little bit of tips and some background information, some insight into how we use the lesson. As with all the lessons, we suggest that you review lessons in order, number 1 to 5, and then the bonus, because the content scaffolds and builds on each lesson. In addition, if you find issues with the lesson, or you have questions, or you have a great idea about something new or different, a way to adapt the activity, or you would like to provide some insider information about the topic in your culture or language, please do send us a note to events@civilityexperts.com, and we'd like to post with your permission any new ideas and so on right in the online course. So here we're going to get right into this lesson. All the lessons are devised in the same way. So if you've been making your way through, you know that there is always an overall goal. In this case, it's to introduce the idea of social justice, including equality and equity. There's a solid rationale for these lessons related to all of us being citizens of the world, living and learning together, and so we encourage you to review that bit of content. The lesson is devised for ages 5 to 10, and it will take an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how many children you have, how many breaks you give, and how you decide to deliver the lessons. You can expand the lesson easily to a half a day or adapt it for older group if you're so inclined as well. So the learning objectives, there are usually 3 with every lesson. In this case, it is we want people to understand what social justice is. We want children to understand, as appropriate for their level, why and how we need to understand and ensure social justice. And also, we want them to be able to give an example of what is fair and right. And so equality and equity, we relate to that as fair and right for children of this age. So a lot of this content relates to 21st century learning framework in terms of the information tied to culture, that collaboration and problem solving is really important, and a lot of the problems that, for example, the United Nations are trying to resolve relate to aspects of equity or inequity or inequality specifically. And so social justice for anyone who is a world citizen, and especially our young world citizens, is a topic that we all need to engage in conversation about, and it's something that, in my mind, and I hope that you share this view, you are never too young to learn. So, getting into the lesson here, there are some recommended resources and sources, some reading, some articles and videos, things that we recommend that you take some time to review. There's a diversity bingo activity that you can use as well. It teaches a little bit about cultures around the world. So, in terms of how this lesson starts, there's a song about social justice that you could use, and there's, social justice for kids. There's many clips on the internet. So, please take your time to review all of these sources and pick out what is appropriate for your culture and for your group. There's a grid here about how we deliver the lesson, and the notes about the terms. There is a larger glossary of terms at the beginning of the Global Teacher online lesson, and you can use those definitions in different ways. The suggestion is that children at age 5 and 6 don't need to memorize them, but that you as a teacher should be able to, and sometimes we'll send a definitions list home because it's a good starting point for conversations with parents and caregivers. So, of course, again, our goal is to understand what social justice is and why it's important. So this is a hands-on activity where we want to see, we want children to kind of understand how different resources affect potential. So we divide the children in half. In one group we're going to give good quality materials, and the other group we're only going to give limited resources. Maybe just a couple of crayons, not as many colors. We know that children are going to make a face and ask a question. They're going to wonder what's going on. And then we're going to ask each person to make the best looking paper doll that they can using the resources that they're given. And after they're finished, we're going to display all of the dolls. And we're going to point out how when some of the children had more tools and resources, when they had more crayons or more colors or more sparkles, that their dolls were better quality dolls, that they were different or prettier, or that they had sparkles and some other dolls didn't, that they didn't have yarn so they couldn't make hair but the other group did. Then we want to talk about how when you don't have something, especially food or water, we call that resources, and when you have very little resources, we call that poverty. And some children understand it as being poor. And we explain to them in a way that they can understand that when we are poor, then poverty impacts how we can be successful, what we can do, and how well we can do things. You might also suggest in this group that after you've done the activity with one group having no resources and the other having lots of resources, you can switch them and ask them to make something different, make a boat, so that each group gets a chance to have all of the resources, and each group gets to feel what the inequality feels like, how it's a little bit uncomfortable. You have to be careful with it. We just pick the children at random. Or you can have two sides of the room and say, we have to split the group in half. It doesn't matter which side you go on because we're going to switch after, but let the children pick a group so that there's no sense of bias, or children who might have experienced poverty don't feel that they're being pre-selected out. All right, so then we're going to explain to children that the way things are split up, the resources, when some people have more and some people have less, this is an example of social justice. Can you say that term? And let them say social justice. And explain that as world citizens, we want everyone to have access to good resources and the same opportunity to be successful and healthy and have a good life. So the definition of social justice is the idea that everyone deserves equal rights and opportunities. You'd be surprised how quickly children grasp onto this idea. So after the break, there's this nice little YouTube clip that you can show, or you can choose something similar if you like. And this is about fair and equal now. So we want to talk to children about how do you make things fair, and should things always be fair? What happens if we don't share, for example? So one way that we can encourage social justice, as adults we know that when it's not legislated, we have to rely on kindness. That sharing and making things equal, even when you don't have to or it's not the law, is kindness. And this is called the golden rule. Sharing with others and making things more fair because that's how you'd like to be treated. And maybe next time someone else will have lots and you will have little, and they will treat you with kindness and share and be fair as well. So we can ask them, what do they think should be equal and fair? And let them say some things out loud. Everyone should have school. Everyone should have water. Everyone should have medicine. Everyone should have food. Everyone should be safe. Let them tell you what they think. And then we talk about how we often have laws about what's fair, who gets to do what, but as world citizens, we need to always think about human kindness, and even when there aren't laws about what's right and wrong, we want to be sure that everybody gets treated fair and square, and sometimes we have to stand up for rights when the rights are not protected. So we don't have to get into politics. Of course, we're not trying to start any strife or stress the children out, but it's a very straightforward, easy lesson about fair and square. So you can play with this lesson throughout. So even on a break, you can say, we're going to give out some treats, and some children get a whole cookie, some children get a half a cookie. And then, of course, we're going to say, to make things fair, now we're going to give the children who only got half a cookie a second half of cookies, so everybody's got a whole. Or you only give some children cookies, and you ask them to make it fair, and they will share and split the cookies in half. So once again, you want to consider the children. So if you're in a culture or community where there is a large disparity, where there is a lot of injustice, and maybe children even at age 5 and 6 have experienced inequity, then you want to be sure to be very sensitive about this lesson and how you work with it. You can use toys, you can use break time. Some children get a pillow, some children don't. Some people get a special pencil, some children get a plain pencil. There's all kinds of ways that you can illustrate this point. And this, I would say, is foundational to the Golden Rule. It's also foundational to the World Citizen Program generally. So at the end, there is the take-home quiz, very short questions that I think are good for ages 6 to 8. Parents could read them, and then they'll have a sense of what you covered in class. Older children can do them, or you can use the quiz as a review when you come back to the next lesson. And there you go. Introduction to Social Justice for Children age 5 to 10. Thank you.